and depending on the results of these 3 games that we'll show you, it will really highly determine who moves on. So I am Icebox, and casting with me and running this tournament is AV Ultima. We are hopping right in this game. How you doing, AV?
Oh, doing great. Ready to get into these matches that mean so much.
Heck yeah. We've got Bannered Bastion spawning in the upper left in the blue. Spartak, his opponent, in the south as the Hopper. So taking a second to look at their decks, we've got Bannered Bastion running those moles. So him and me favoring those pretty heavily for this tournament. And so we'll see if the meta's kind of being shown or defined in front of our eyes. We'll see if that sort of 2-minute and 40-second mole push ends up coming out or not. And Spartak, I'm not sure if he's been paying attention to the stream, but we see that he's got chameleons in his composition, and those seem to serve the gentleman really well. He was able to take the series from Mishi by pretty much winning off the back of chameleons.
Yeah, and if he does end up getting those chameleons out, it'll help a lot if, when the engagement comes, if and when it comes, he keeps it as many of his warrens alive as possible, including that chameleon warren, because it may allow him to counterattack against the initial mole push. Because remember, moles can't reinforce.
I think I should have gone back and looked, because yeah, in the game that the gentleman lost to Mishi, he had the chameleon warren and it was gone somehow. And I'm thinking, without looking back on it, I think he lost that in the mole push. And so he kind of readjusted that strategy for the second game and put him in the back. And who knows, he might have put him in the front because warrens now have higher health at higher tiers. So I think it's 50 at tier 1, 75 at tier 2, and 100 at tier 3. And so I think he was trying to go for that extra tankiness, but it was actually just better to keep those chameleon warrens alive instead. So both players just hopping up to 8 farms and getting a pretty standard composition. It appears that the timing and build out for this mole push is to get about 3 squirrel warrens and then bank your money for moles, but Bannered might be going for a little bit of an earlier one, so he's banking a bunch of food and only moving out with 4 out of his 6 squirrels currently. Spartak is looking like he's in okay position for it. If this chameleon gets out in time, it might be able to push in his favor, but it looks like Bannered is thinking better of it and going to head back home and get that 3rd squirrel warren instead. And 4th. And 5th as Falcons. So Bannered goes back and entirely gives up on this possible mole push that I was trying to predict, and is going up to 12 scrolls and 2 falcons instead.
It did look like he was gearing up to do some moles, but it could be that he saw Spartak was on his commander and he didn't want Spartak to see it happen. So instead of just going with it, he just decided to step back, spend his money, and then be so indecisive.
Yeah, even though moles do build pretty quickly, it is true. Like the few times that the person defending the mole push has seen them coming, it's been a little bit easier because they can usually take out one of those moles before they even get up. And so Bannered wanting to go for more of a surefire attack maybe a little bit later in this game, he did sniff out the danger and went back home instead. So we're just seeing some standard selling and reselling and unselling of things. Spartak is going into a pretty heavy tier 2 composition, 2 chameleons, 2 snakes.
I think what'll be a good micro choice when the attack comes is if Spartak pulls his chameleons through the moles and attacks his squirrels. That'll keep the squirrels from attacking his squirrels, and let's see if that works out.
We've got a big engagement going on right here. Yeah, Bannered Bastion did indeed go for a mole push. He's still got 3 of them alive. He's going to start to pull out before he gets too much more done, and it looks like that was just a pretty even engagement. Even looking at the army graph real quick, he pulled out before either side really ended up getting the better or worse hand. So really no damage done there other than army lost. And so Spartak, this time he did sell off his chameleons, right? Those were in the back, or did he lose that one?
No, he definitely sold them off that time.
Yeah, so selling off his chameleons, we'll see if that turns out to be a good choice or not and decides to go for an expansion instead, whereas Bannered Bastion is doubling down on that aggression and instead going for extra falcons. So kind of around that 4-minute to 4-minute and 30-second mark, you kind of have to make a choice as a player, like to go for a little bit more aggression or to go for an expansion. So Bannered's actually going for both, so maybe I'm super wrong right there. But since your farms burn out at 5 minutes, you usually need to have a game plan for heavier eco or to hopefully win the game off the strong push.
Yeah, it's interesting that he decided to sell the chameleons over the snakes. I guess the snakes do also give a bit of tank, but then they're in the back shooting the moles and poisoning them. So I don't know how much good that'll do. Wow, and he's adding on a whole bunch of tier 2 on the left side of his base.
Getting those chameleons back. Yeah, I agree, because the snakes have also been changed. Their acid damage to structures, which was a change I think I agree with and enjoy in this game. But they're still, snakes are pretty good. They're not really tier 3 counters necessarily, but they're really good for fighting against tier 3 units, because if you can get those poison stacks on those heavy units, it's just guaranteed damage and is a painful way to watch them die. So that might help in this oncoming fight with the Badger and against these kind of squishy Falcons. So we'll see. Maybe he sold off those chameleons because he saw the Falcons out of Bannered, and melee units obviously cannot hit air, and so that could have been the choice for that reassessment from Spartak.
Ooh, and Bannered already has his Badger out. I'm wondering if he will decide to go for a timing attack soon to push his advantage.
If Spartak can survive long enough to get these two more snakes out, bringing him up to 4, I kind of like his position. He's in a bit of a choked off base. I mean, it's all going to come down to the engagement. Like, I'd almost like to see some mill tanking here from Spartak, like trying to take this upper ground mill and engaging on the high ground before Bannered can get into too good of a position. But he has the opportunity for maybe a nice concave here on the low ground. So Bannered's just kind of going to take it easy and run around and let I guess the last few squirrels and the pigeons that he just threw down finish up before he makes any kind of a push. So that's going to work into Spartak's favor, as he's trying to still build up some units of his own.
I like Spartak's liberal use of MGs in this game, just putting them down just in case. Because if the enemy scouts your base and sees MGs, and it might not stop it, but it still makes him put a second guess in his head is, maybe I can't actually break this.
Yeah, so he's kind of posturing. So before they attack here, AV, it's kind of hard to focus fire Falcons these days. So I see the chat kind of talking about it. Is there a trick you know of to do that? Or
I think it's just something inherent with flying units. They're sort of flying above your commander. It's hard to pinpoint exactly where the focus fire is for a flying unit compared to a ground unit. So that's probably what people are talking about.
Yeah, it is kind of a tricky thing, so you don't really know. So he's going to move in here. This mill is going to be a bit of a health plunge. Survive this battle will be an econ. Banner Bastion's going to move in, and this battle has begun. That mill goes down immediately. Those moles also going down. Overall, this battle seems to be pretty even, maybe going in favor of Banner Bastion. Despite losing that Badger, he still had those 3 out of his 4 Falcons laying down some pretty heavy fire. Spartak smartly doesn't push the engagement too hard and stays close to his MGs and kind of snakes away. And it looks like that, looking at the army graph, that was a pretty even engagement, even though Banner kind of got the upper end. But selling off some stuff right now, if Banner re-engages right now, I'm afraid for the position of Spartak, and he's going to do just that. He's going to move in with only 1 snake to his name. This is going to be a really tough hold for Spartak. Sure enough, as Banner moves in, he's going to continue pushing across. This is a pretty unwinnable situation, it looks like, as this mill's going to go down for the second time, and Spartak may just have to tap out at this point. He does.
Yeah, after that fight, the blue player went back and sold his Badger Warren, and then allowed him to get a whole bunch of food back, and then that allowed him to repush with reinforcements plus moles. So good play from recognizing he was ahead a bit on army and eco, so he was able to sell that for some money back.
Yeah, and Spartak kind of making the wrong read, I suppose. He was thinking that the storm was over, so he went and sold and started to reposition some of his things and build up some other tier 2 warrens, and so that was a pretty big loss of his front line in exchange for a hopefully stronger later game. But Banner Bastion did not wait long enough to let that later game happen and just kind of pushed through. So as these players are deciding on their compositions, we're going to hop into game number 2. So in the north, down 1 game, we've got Spartak against his opponent in the blue, Bannered Bastion on this super watery map. I think this is Howling. This is another one of the new tile sets released with the latest patch this past Monday, I believe.
This is a map. Half of it isn't even being used. Wow.
It's pretty comical. So all of the structures and buildings and trees that you see are just for show. This is like a Christmas village. It's just here for the display, and so Bannard is definitely going to be maybe a little bit on the back foot coming into this game with very few options out of his main base. Pretty interested to see how this one pans out. But again, it's very defensible. Like Spartak here doesn't really have a good avenue of attack either.
Yeah, you're starting to sound a bit more robotic, as the Twitch chat is pointing out, and you're cutting out a bit. I don't know if that's something happening on your end, a download perhaps that has started.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'll just hop out and in real quick in the Discord. My apologies for the noise real quick.
I really hope Bannard Bastion recognizes that he needs to just set up something early, like take the high ground position here or something. He can't really play defensively here unless he decides to go straight for an early bore, push out with that tier 3 timing. Otherwise, he's going to be in trouble, really. This map is, as Icebox mentioned, is based on the Howling Vale variant, and this is, I mean, I would take a picture of this, show your friends and family.
Yeah, this will be. I managed to hop back. Hopefully, the sound is getting a little bit better. I'm not sure what it was. I was streaming the stream itself, so I've paused that for now. We'll see if that makes a difference. But Spartak going for 2 Chameleons against 2 Falcons of Bannard. So I think Falcons will kind of play out pretty nicely on this map since there's so much water. They don't have to worry about that movement deficit.
It's kind of a shame neither of these players chose ferrets, because that would definitely be the defining factor here as well. Even if Bannard Bastion had it, he sits his units right here on the little tiny bridge, shoots over. He could definitely gain ground with that, but unfortunately, neither player with ferrets.
Everyone's just going for them moles. We'll see. Well, and by everyone, I mean Bannard Bastion and Mishi for the most part. So we'll see what ends up being the predominating strategy after today. So Bannard maybe looking to make a kind of mole Falcon push here. It seems to be a really popular thing. Those moles doing such a good job of tanking, and then those Falcons just laying down the hurt, being the highest DPS tier 2 units. We'll see. There's honestly not much place to put moles. I've just realized.
I was thinking that as well. If he was going to build them, it'd be back at his main or somewhere in a really awkward position at the high ground here.
I wonder if Bannard Bastion kind of realized that as he was just moving across the map, because yeah, he was just kind of like, wait a second, I can't even do this if I wanted to, and he runs back home and puts down a boar instead.
Yep, it's pretty smart. He's gonna take his defensive advantage he has, and he's just gonna try to get ahead in army, and then hopefully push out before Spartak has an equal enough army.
You pointed out in an earlier game, AV, that this tier 3 timing is maybe a little bit late considering the choices of Spartak here. Getting this gristmill up and running so quickly might put him in a pretty good spot as long as he can survive this tier 3 push.
Yeah, exactly. Spartak is going to be ahead in eco for a little bit while this boar is coming out. That's sort of a strat that Xena likes to pull off, but looks like we might be seeing an early push out before that even happens.
He's got Spartak had those chameleons attacking that campground in the background. Meanwhile, they're going to come up from behind on Bannard Bastion's army. Let's see. I can't really tell where they are. We'll see if they end up engaging at a good time or a bad time. But with these 4 Falcons all still alive, this is looking pretty tough hold for Spartak. But as long as this engagement goes well for him and he can get some of those snake stacks off on these Falcons, he might be sitting in an okay spot. He hasn't really lost too much yet. There's been no really dangerous damage. And he's slowly taking out these Falcons, and he's going to overwhelm the forces of Bannard here and take them out. The one tricky part here is Spartak's probably feeling good after that engagement went his way, but the board just got out from Bannard. So I wonder if that was kind of the plan for Bannard Bastion. I don't think his plan involved losing all 4 of his Falcons, but kind of losing some and then getting a reinforcing group back together with his boar could indeed try to break Spartak's back, depending on the choices he makes now, having won that engagement.
Yeah, he was supply blocked a little bit on his Falcons. They were at red for a while, but it allowed his boar to come out, as you said. And now Spartak is in a tough spot. He may actually have enough units to brute force it if he's really lucky. It's focused down his boar, but it'd be tough now that he has more Falcons floating in.
I think the burden here is on Spartak to be patient, because really anyone who tries to engage across this water on the bridge is going to have a bit of a tough time with it. And so we see Banner now trying to position and start to move his units slowly but surely across, and Spartak's going to pounce on him and move in. He's going to lose both of those chameleons in pretty short order, and this boar is going to put down some major pain here. He's got some snake stacks on him. He's going to go down and taking out not as many of the units as maybe he would have liked, because that snake stack killed him while he was sitting on the back lines, and it looks like Spartak might have just enough to reinforce the real story of the game here right now, is that Spartak's sitting at 8 farms to 5 with no campfire count that I can tell. And with that boar gone, Banner Bastion is going to head back to base and sell it off.
That was perfect. That's exactly what needed to happen. I said that he needed to focus down that boar with his other units, while his other stuff, or with his snakes, while his other smaller units. Oh, looks about to have a fight here. Ooh, just a bit of a poke. But yeah, now Spartak is ahead on eco because he got that base so early on, and that forced Banner to pretty much sell his boar.
Indeed, this is looking pretty good for Spartak so far. Banner Bastion's going to lose his commander at a really terrible time as Spartak's moving in. He's going to clean up the rest of Banner's army, and this is going to be an especially difficult position to now come back from, as Spartak's going to continue the pressure, killing these pigs, leave 2 snake stacks without any other damages enough to take a pig out, and Banner Bastion is going to tap out. We've got ourselves a series, AV.
Yeah, you made a great observation saying that it'd be good if both these players stayed passive, tried to get their eco up, and whoever made that first attack would most likely lose because of the environment. And lo and behold, the red player goes in for the blue player goes in for an attack, and he ends up losing the game because of it.
It was a really tough engage across the bridge, especially with the boar's already slow. He's like at 67% movement speed compared to other units, and trying to go across the water just takes him that much longer to get into position, because the boar explosion's awesome, but you still want him just to do actual damage with his flamethrower, and so not being able to do that as quickly definitely set up Spartak there for success in that last game. So here we are heading into game number 3. Spartak opting for the same composition, I believe. He never got a tier 3 unit out, so I always forget if they swap those things out. It didn't matter anyways. Banner Bastion opting this time for kind of deciding on that second tier 2 pick. So in the unit draft here, he's definitely bringing those Falcons along. Those do seem to be playing really well, because Banner Bastion was on the back foot at the end of that last game, but he definitely lost that engagement largely due to losing his commander. So he was maybe going to lose the game anyways, but that made it a pretty sure thing that Spartak attacked right as he killed the commander, as Banner was trying to scout out what was going on. So this time opting for the Badger instead of Boar. We'll see if the map RNG gods give him a map which favors it. We've got Spartak spawning on the right-hand side. It looks like we've got another Howling Vel map. Plenty of icy, slushy water. On the left-hand side in the blue, Banner Bastion. Both players evened up in this series, looking to move on.
This is, and oddly enough, pretty even map. Both players have 2 expansions. Oh, but Spartak has the 2 campfires on his side of the map, so that'll probably be a really big factor when it comes. If they do end up going late game, this can very easily be a late game map. They're just gonna have to defend this southern peninsula here, or this shoreline. That's where most of the fights will probably happen.
Yeah, and moles seem to be a little bit tough on this kind of map because they're the same speed as any other units, but this water just kind of makes everything trickier. So it's like moles really excel when you're able to get your army to engage in the correct order. So your moles first and your tier 2 units behind. And so when you're going across these bridges, the unit AI just kind of acts a little bit differently, and it's not as easy to make that stuff happen. So Banner Bastion kind of noticing this weird little staircase behind Spartak's base. It's so out in the middle of nowhere that I don't think we'll see anything come of it. Spartak, I'm curious to see where he's scouting right now. If you can actually get through that water right there, that might make for a good, long, sneaky move around to get behind Spartak's base.
Yeah, it seems like there's one tile between the hill and a tree where you can sneak some units in. Yeah, it'd be fun if we did see that, but that's a long trek through that water.
Yeah, that would take a long time. So both players just going up to 6 squirrels, 8 farms, pretty standard stuff, no deviations in their builds yet. We're going to be paying attention closely to see if the first different thing someone does. Spartak kind of building up food, and sure enough, he throws down some chameleons. So those seem so far to be a really effective response to any of these early mole shenanigans, because they just do their job of tanking a little better.
Yeah, he's really confident in that timing where he'll get a chameleon out right when that 240 attack happens, and at least from what we've seen so far, it does hold pretty well.
Yeah, and it seems you appear to only need the 2 of them. So even with, I think we saw a couple times Mishi try to do that against the gentleman, even bringing a few falcons along with the mole push, and the chameleons were still beefy enough to win out the engagement in the end. So so far, I'm kind of putting my money on chameleons being a good answer to this mole aggression early on. But they need to be early chameleons. So far, Bannard is he's starting to save up some money. So we'll see. His commander, he's just kind of scouting out, so he might be saving up money because he's back at base, because he's not back at base. So we'll see what he decides to do. He decides to throw down some farms. So he is indeed going to go for this sort of easily defended pocket expansion to try to go for a heavy econ game. Whereas Spartak has yet to make that decision yet. He'll probably grab this campfire over here and maybe this other one as well. And then kind of follow suit. Spartak hopping up to 2 more snakes of his own. He seems to favor this even-keeled buildup of tier 2 units along with his tier 1s.
If this game makes it late, which it has the potential to, these players will definitely have to start staggering their farms so they don't end up starving and forcing them to take an engagement they may not want to.
And with not a ton of gristmills on the map, yeah, that definitely is going to be a concern. And in terms of late game compositions, gosh, I guess it really just depends. I tend to... It'll depend a lot on the composition of your opponent, because the boar really does well if your opponent decides to go for heavy tier 1, because the boar just pretty much kills all that tier 1 at the same time. Whereas if Spartak is going to go for heavy high-tech units, the Badger might do pretty well just because of the sheer output, damage output that she's able to lay down. So right now, players just kind of still, they've got this sort of, I think they both learned how difficult engagements can be on this Howling Vel type tile set, and so they are both just kind of sitting across the river, just like watching each other. It's like watching Civil War or some World War I battle where you're able to make eye contact with your enemy, but no one's fighting yet, and so they're doing that. Bannard's sitting at a little bit of a econ advantage, 16 farms to 13, but I expect to see Spartak kind of finish fleshing out that gristmill in short order. Does Bannard Bastion know about that campfire? He does not. And so I wonder if... I always like to see these... I've seen players, they'll run out with their commander and then rally their falcons to a certain point, since they can fly straight across, and then just burrow back home. So it would be pretty cool to see Bannard go scope out that campfire, bring his falcons over just to snipe it, and then go back. But I think he's just worried, if you spend that much time away from your base, your opponent might move in and just walk over your army.
Yeah, the time that would take to do that to kill just a 60 food item may not be worth it. But I mean, if he ever has the time, that's definitely a very plausible option.
Just for the spectacle. Fun for us to watch. So Spartak further fortifying his position here. Army value-wise, they're pretty much dead even, obviously, because there hasn't been an engagement yet, and they're on even farms.
Well, look at that.
He did it! He did it, everybody! Look at this!
Oh, but he's noticed.
He knows what he's talking about sometimes, but he's found it. Can he get them rallied back in time? Bannard's got to react quickly.
Oh, that is so smart.
Position. Oh, yes! That is what I'm talking about. Granted, it's 60 food that Falcon's not going to die, right?
He's not in his territory. Yeah, 60 food or 60.
Nap. I thought, okay, question then, AV. I thought snakes did, each stack did 5 damage and then it would expire anyways. Does it just do damage until you receive healing or in your territory?
No. It does last. I don't remember the time, but it'll do 1 damage to you every second for a certain amount of seconds. But if you reach your territory and aren't getting hit, it'll turn off earlier, I believe.
Okay, because Falcons have 20 health maybe, or 18 health, something like that. Whatever it is, maybe 15 health. I think they have 15 health, and that was surprising to see 1 snake stack take it out. But still, probably worth it. It was 60 food plus the income in exchange for a 160 food Falcon that he's already replaced. And Bannard is going ham on the Falcons. So he's got a Badger out, and he's got 10 Falcons on the way against... This is going to be a huge fight coming up.
These guys are equal in army. They're equal in eco. This is just going to be one big fight, and it'll just come down to who's going to do those micro situations in the fight.
I don't even know if it's going to be one big fight because both of these players are keeping a solid eye on this water, and neither of them wants to move across it. And so, like, this game they could just build up this army, absolutely nothing, and one of them is just going to starve. We'll see. Because this is a pretty scary engagement to try to decide, like, Spartak's got to get his whole army across this water before Bannard notices to really have a successful engagement. And I think Bannard's not really looking forward to trying to engage across the water anytime soon. So, and he's got the gristmill advantage in terms of how long he can last. So, we'll see how much of a Cold War situation this turns into.
We're most likely going to see the engagement happen when Spartak goes to take his final base here, and he'll have to do that soon because now Bannard Bastion has done it himself. He's falling behind in that eco. There he goes.
He is in the water. This is definitely, Falcons are a good choice here out of Bannard Bastion because they do not suffer from the movement penalty of being in water because they're flying above the water. But that'll make the positioning of his army a little bit easier, and he can kind of poke away here. This time his Falcons can retreat to the safety of pigeons so that these snake stacks don't kill them in one shot.
You know what I wouldn't mind seeing Spartak do is that when the engagement fully starts, don't even bother letting your boar attack the squirrels, because if he explodes, he's going to kill them anyway. So during the fight, I want to see him like pull that into the middle of Bannard Bastion's army and just explode and do significant damage.
AV, that would be the coolest thing ever. But man, that's a bummer though, because they wouldn't kill Falcons anymore, right? Because boar does 10 damage to units.
I think the hope is that he'll do enough damage to them. Yeah, and then the rest of his units will hopefully be still alive, and then all the squirrels will be gone. So
there's no friendly fire damage, right?
Oh no. He has 3 badgers though.
That would be kind of weird. 3. Okay, Bannard Bastion is saying now is the time to push across with his army, and he's getting the advantage in positioning because these units are taking a while to reinforce. It's a huge, massive fight going on in the middle. The boar gets right in the middle, the nukes, everything. That is what we're talking about. That was amazing. These snakes are going to do their best to clean up these badgers.
These badgers are going to die.
All of them, they're all going to die.
Oh
is that true? It's true. What an engagement out of Spartak. Oh my gosh, that was well worth the wait.
That was exactly what needed to happen. Definitely Spartak came out ahead in that fight. Everything died there except for bits and pieces of Spartak's army. He can now sell stuff and be ahead in army come the next engagement. He has more tier 2 right now, and he ended up selling his boar. I guess Bastion is hoping to get that his badger back out, but eco is pretty low right now in terms of trying to reinforce, so it'll be a while before his boar comes out. Or badger, I mean.
Yeah, that was an awesome fight. I had to turn the stream back on just to be able to watch people react to that. That was absolutely the most spectacular single engagement we've seen today. This boar bomb was a little bit of a suspicious move by Andy when he was first suggesting it, but I think it's cool as hell. All right, so Spartak is just kind of retreating back to his base to make sure he's got things built up. Bannard Bastion had to sell off some of his Falcons, and he's just getting this kind of squirrel, falcon, pigeon composition to try to win off the back of. But with 12 snakes on the field for Spartak, that's going to be a tall order to overcome.
Even if Bannard Bastion wins a fight, if Spartak gets enough poison off, like his army's just going to die in the ensuing poison.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be like, because snakes do take a little while for their damage to really come online and do it. If there's a high DPS army like Falcons, snakes aren't going to do their damage quite fast enough. But at the same time, if they lay out all those poison stacks, they're going to just take everything out. So all these snakes leading up, and he just micros the way into the army. That was a little bit of a crazy micro choice, but let's see if that ends up paying off. We've got 4 snakes to 5 Falcons and a ton of squirrels, so it turns out that micro choice was just fine for Spartak, and it looks like he's going to take the army, game, and series here.
Ooh, what a game. Wow.
What a series. That was sick.
I just noticed at the end there, but that Bannard Bastion decided to go for a second badger, but neither of them were coming out, so he must have sold something to get those down and decided to go all in.